Hi there. In this video, we're going to take a more in-depth look at the Soulsby synthesizer's miniAtmegatron. Now I say more in-depth because I've already done a previous video, which I'll link to in the description, that was more just a general overview of the miniAtmegatron. Also, we'll take a look at its new manual that's going to be coming out soon. Here I have the three main components that make up the miniAtmegatron. The first is the miniAtmegatron itself, which is a shield for the Arduino. Now this comes as a DIY kit. In my first video about the miniAtmegatron, that's what it's about, is assembling the DIY version and a brief overview of the sounds that are available that you can make with that. The second item here is the Arduino. Now, when you do order from the Soulsby Synthesizers website, you are going to get an Arduino compatible board. And what that means is this is going to be an Arduino clone. They're very open and clear about that on the website. Now, the advantage of ordering the Arduino from Soulsby Synthesizers is it's already going to be MIDI hacked. And what that means is the USB port is going to already be set up for MIDI communication. That is something you do have to change from a standard Arduino board. If you do want to do that yourself with your own Arduino, there's a video on the Soulsby Synthesizers website and their YouTube channel. But if you do decide to make the modification yourself, you'll save a little bit of money. If you decide to buy this from Soulsby Synthesizer, you'll save yourself a little bit of time and effort. And lastly here, we have the case for the miniAtmegatron. Now this is optional. However, I do recommend it. It's really nice not to just have your Arduino and your miniAtmegatron board just, out in the open where they can get tossed around, shorted out, things like that. It's really nice. This case is super sturdy. Your board is protected. And basically, I really like this kit. I think it looks awesome, and it's really simple to put together, just the 6 pieces and a little bit of mounting hardware. There are little issues with the fit. It's a little tight in spots. If you want to watch my video that I've already done on this case, I'll have a link to that also in the description. Now you can order each one of these either individually or in any kind of combination thereof. In the next few sections of the video, what I'm going to be doing is going over the new manual for the miniAtmegatron. The miniAtmegatron lacked a proper manual before. It was just very, very basic, how to kind of get some sounds out of it. So I'm going to have a bunch of different sections with different waveforms, the LFOs, and some of the MIDI operation of the miniAtmegatron. So we'll go ahead and get started with those. Now I have the miniAtmegatron hooked up to audio and power. So I have the 1/8 inch mono audio out jack hooked up. I also have the USB cable hooked up for power. Now this is also going to be how we receive MIDI data, but I'm going to wait to talk about the MIDI data until another portion in this video. So now what I figure I'll do is show you the 16 different waveforms that come with the miniAtmegatron. Now these are the same waveforms that have existed since the miniAtmegatron came out. However, because all you had was this 2-page manual, you didn't necessarily know what waveform was playing. You could just go by ear, which is fine. But if you were more curious of what the waveform actually was, if you were trying to achieve a certain sound and maybe needed a little more help to get there, now we have a new manual that has come out or will be coming out soon. And in that manual is a picture and also a name of each of the 16 audio waveforms or oscillator shapes, basically. The way I'm going to demonstrate the miniAtmegatron's internal audio wave shapes for basically the oscillator is I'm going to run through a few bars each of one of the built-in patterns of the miniAtmegatron. I'm going to do this without any sound modification, meaning I'm not going to have any distortion, any of the filters turned on, things like that, to try and get the most pure waveform and sound that we can get out of these. And if we go by the original manual that came out here, how we're going to step through the different waveforms is the function needs to be turned off, the function LED, or as it shows on the manual, black, and it is. And then we use the value knobs to step through the different waveform selects. So I'll go ahead and start stepping through these and we'll take a listen. Now I'll take a look at the 15 different filter types that are built into the miniAtmegatron. I'll be doing this the same way, using one of the internal patterns. And I just am going to have the filter resonance at about the halfway point, and then just do a slow filter sweep with the filter frequency cutoff knob. And we'll just listen to some of the basic sounds that those filters are going to have. Now then, the last 4 filters won't have any effect from the filter resonance, but they still will for the filter cutoff. Now we'll take a look at the LFO wave shapes. Now there is only one LFO in the miniAtmegatron. However, that one LFO can be applied to the amplitude, the pitch, the filter cutoff, and the pulse width. It can be any one of those or all of those, but it is just one LFO wave shape that can be applied at any one time. All of the knobs on the miniAtmegatron, they just control, any of them that are marked LFO, they control the amount the LFO is going to control of that certain destination. So let's say filter LFO, that applies how much the LFO is going to control the filter cutoff or pitch. That's pretty obvious how much the LFO controls the pitch. Amplitude LFO, same thing. So any of these 5 LFO controls on the top panel of the miniAtmegatron that are marked LFO is just how much the LFO is going to affect each one of those controls. In this video, I'm not going to go through every single wave shape of the LFO. I'll put a picture up right now of the 16 different shapes. These will also be available in the manual if you need a reference to a specific LFO wave shape. I am going to talk about one though, which is the last one called DC static. And static in this case means not changing. It doesn't mean like random noise type static. And it's a little different than the rest. You might not think it's doing anything, but what it does is it's a positive DC offset. And what that means is it's just, instead of a wave shape that's moving, it's just a static wave shape. So it's just a certain level that is raised up a certain amount. So I'll try and show you what I mean by that. So right now I just have the default sine wave on the pitch modulation. So we'll listen to that. Obviously you can hear the sine wave. But if we step down, which cycles from 0 down back around to 15, which is the DC static waveform, we'll hear that as I move the modulation wheel up, all it does is raise the pitch up in this case, since I'm controlling the pitch LFO amount with this. Now you may ask yourself, why would you want this, or how is this useful? And the answer is, if you have a certain control that maybe you don't want an LFO wave shape controlling. Maybe you don't want a sine wave, maybe you don't want a triangle and the square and etc. Maybe you just want to set it at a different level than what it is for some strange reason, and you don't want to use the knobs. Well, let's say I want to raise the pitch up. Well, of course I could just use the pitch wheel, but it's going to move. But if I use the modulation assigned to the pitch LFO, assigned to number 15, the static, I could leave it at that pitch. So now it's just raised up that amount until I bring it back down. Now that's just one example of how to use that. It could be controlling the filter cutoff, the pulse width modulation, any of the other controls that the LFO normally can handle. But if you need a way to just move a control a certain amount and leave it there, that's one way. Now, unlike the single LFO in the miniAtmegatron, there are actually 2 envelope generators. One is for the amplitude, and there's another one that's shared between the filter cutoff and the pitch. However, like the LFO, those knobs correspond to how much the envelope generator wave shape is going to actually affect that amount for that particular destination. Now, I'm not going to go through all 16 of the envelope shapes in this video. However, I will put them on screen right now, and I'll just go through maybe the first 2 to show you a little bit of a difference between them. So I have it on number 0 right now. So when I press a note and hold it, that's what you're going to hear. And if I change it, so now we're on the yellow, which is the amp envelope, and I step up 1 to number 1, now it's just going to be a small little blip. So that's how you change the different envelope shapes, is just like all the rest of the functions, is stepping up or down with the value buttons. Now I'll show a little bit about the pattern tempo and MIDI control. Now for pattern tempo, we see there is actually on the slightly newer version of the small paper manual with the miniAtmegatron that you get when you order one, it does say function plus and then up or down on the value, and that's how you're going to change the pattern tempo. So I'll turn up the volume a little bit on the pattern that's already playing. So we'll hold down the function plus, and then I'll change it to go faster by pressing the plus on the value. Or we can slow it down by pressing the minus on the value. Now when I speed up the tempo on my MIDI sequencer on my computer, you should hear it get faster when I raise up the tempo, so here it goes. And then when I lower the tempo, you'll hear it come back down. With the new manual that's coming out for the miniAtmegatron is all the MIDI information that it can receive. Now the miniAtmegatron doesn't send any MIDI information. It only receives MIDI controller data and note data and pitch data, things like that. Obviously also MIDI clock that we just talked about. So I'm going to put up just the MIDI controller information right now, because that's usually what people are interested in if they're going to be controlling the MIDI functions on a synthesizer. One little note, I did find a bug on one of these. MIDI CC number 91 should be controlling the pulse width LFO amount, but is actually controlling number 95, the phase LFO. So unfortunately, that is a small bug. I've let Paul Soulsby know about this, and he said there should be a fix in a future update. Now to show that the miniAtmegatron can receive these MIDI CC controls, I've already showed obviously the pitch on the keyboard, the modulation wheel, and the pitch control wheel. But I've assigned some of the knobs to control a couple functions that are more useful than using the front panel. Sometimes these knobs are a little small. Sometimes you want some bigger knobs to control things. So I'll go ahead and turn up a sequence that I have playing now. And what I have is on this knob, I have the filter cutoff, and on this knob, I have the filter resonance. Now the last thing I'll show in this video is how to save a patch. This information is on the small paper manual that now comes with the miniAtmegatron, and it's also mentioned in the new PDF version also. So you may notice when you power on the miniAtmegatron, it usually comes up with one certain patch and pattern recalled, but with this function you can change that. Just to show you that it reboots every time you power it up and resets to a saved patch, I'll turn up the volume a little here. And you can hear there's a pretty extreme filter setting that will go away. The pattern will change when this reboots. So if you just pull the power, and now you plug it back in. So this is what most people probably have when they power on the miniAtmegatron, just because a lot of people didn't know you could change or save a patch, because this information on the paper manual wasn't originally released. This is a slightly newer version that has that information on there. So let's say I want to change something. So let's first of all say I want to change the pattern. So instead of this pattern, I just want to stop it. So now it's just the keyboard. And let's say I just want to save that. So all I'm going to do is hold down the minus function button, and you'll see it flash, and that will mean the patch is now saved. There, so that flash that you saw there means it's now saved. We can go ahead and recall a pattern again. So that's a different one than we had originally. I'll pull the power again. I'll plug it back in. Now nothing is playing, but remember we turned off that sequence. So now when I play the keyboard, it should just play. So there you go. One note is there's only one patch location. It's just that default one. So if you find a certain setting that you like, you will be able to save it to that location. So that's a more in-depth look at the Soulsby synthesizer's miniAtmegatron. Check out their website for the new manual. It should be coming out very soon. And be sure to watch my other videos about the miniAtmegatron. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.